Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with a rifle out of my collection. It's one of my oddballs. It's one of my favorites, as if I don't have a favorite. Pretty much any rifle, if it's in my collection, is a favorite, even the ones I don't like. But the rifle I'm out here with today is an old bullpup design. It has quite an interesting history. It is a rifle that is still available in the used gun market on places like Gun Broker or Guns America, but also there's a US company manufacturing new versions of the rifle, and the rifle I'm talking about is the M17S. The M17S goes all the way back to 1986. And in Australia, they were looking to adopt a new military service rifle, and a company called Armtec was developing a rifle for the Australian military. And they had a couple of different prototypes. One was a caseless rifle that they were working on, and it was called the C30R, and then they had one they were working on in the 5.56 chambering, which they called the C60R. And I may get those backwards. I don't know. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head. Anyway, the rifles went on to be considered for military adoption, but in the end, the Australian government opted to license and build the Steyr AUG. So, Armtec sold the rights to the rifle to another company called Edenpine, another Australian company, and they continued the development of the gun. And that's when Charles St. George got involved with the development of the rifle. Now, they wanted to get the rifle into the U.S. market, and to get around crazy import restrictions, they decided to find a U.S. manufacturer to help build the guns here in the United States. And so Edenpine partnered up with Bushmaster to manufacture the guns. And from 1992 to 1994, they manufactured these rifles before the Clinton-era ban of 1994. In 94, Edenpine went out of business, and Bushmaster assumed the rights to manufacture this rifle completely, and they continued to produce it until about 2005. So there are some examples of this gun that would be considered pre-ban rifles. And if memory serves me correctly, this is perhaps the only bullpup that wasn't banned by name during the Clinton administration ban. I can't remember, but it was one of the rifles that did not make it onto the ban list by name, I believe. So the pre-ban guns would have muzzle devices on them like this. This is a post-ban rifle, and it was very common for people post-94 to buy these and convert them to accept regular flash hiders so that they could, look the part of a pre-ban rifle. And that's what's happened to this particular gun. So Bushmaster, like I said, continued on to produce these guns until about 2005. Then they went the way of the dodo. They have been resurrected, and K&M is now manufacturing the guns as the M17S. And they started life just taking original rifles like this and cleaning them up and modernizing them, and now they're manufacturing them completely here in the United States using new parts. And in my opinion, they've improved them quite a bit. We're going to take a closer look at this rifle, do a little bit of shooting with it. I also want to show you a rifle that internally this rifle is very similar to. I think you guys will find that a little bit interesting. And so anyway, let's get to loading up some magazines and do a little bit of shooting with the gun, take a look at it on the inside, and talk about how it was manufactured and what some of the unique features of the gun are. All right, so before we start shooting with the rifle, let's talk about some of the basic fire control features of the gun. Now, what's really unique about the rifle is how the weapon charges. Now, you saw at the beginning of the video when I said, let's talk about some of the unique features. This is how you charge the rifle. You grab the rear part of what would normally be considered the carrying handle, and you pull it to the rear and let it go. So that's how you charge the rifle. So, as you can see, it leaves the sight base up here somewhat unsupported, but it's a very thick polymer here. It also has a 1913 pick rail on top, and then on the bottom, it has windage adjustable rear sight, and then a fixed polymer front sight that you can actually see through the underside of this 1913 rail. So you do have iron sights down there. The gun also has a magazine release, AR-15 style right here, which is a bit awkward. So you're shooting right-handed, and it definitely is a rifle intended for right-handed shooters. If you want to release the magazine, you kind of have to reach up here and hit the button and drop it out like that. Okay, but fortunately, over here, you have a bolt release, a ping pong paddle, very similar to an AR-15, but also this little button is a magazine release. So, if you're shooting, you can reach up here, grab the magazine, hit the button, and strip your magazine out if you want to do so. All right, the safety is right here by my finger. It's a cross block safety. to the right is safe. It's marked with a white mark on the back. Push it that way to put it on fire, and it'll have a red stripe on the other side. The sight that I've put on here is a Burst Fastfire 3. Pretty much any 1913 style sight's going to work. Just keep in mind that it has a fairly high cheek weld, so if you put some crazy optic up here, you're not going to put a magnified optic up here like an ACOG. It'll look really weird because you'd be shooting at something like this. You'd have no cheek weld whatsoever. So we're going to go ahead and make their weapon ready to shoot. Use the standard AR-15 style magazines. This is a Troy Industries Battle Mag. Insert it in, pull the charging handle to the rear, put the weapon on fire, and then we're going to take some pot shots at a rubber dummy down there. Alright, so as you can see, the rifle locks open on the last shot fired. Now here you have a couple of choices to drop the magazine out. I can reach up here with my non-shooting hand. I can hit the button and let gravity do its thing. Drop the magazine out, grab another one, stick it in. Now this is where the ping pong paddle comes in. If you're used to AR-15s, stick the magazine in. It's a natural stroke if you kind of beer can it. Hit the button and the weapon's ready to fire once again. Now I know for a fact what you guys are wondering right now is, how does the gun fire 80s hip style? Let's find out. Not too bad. But check that out. So now I can't say how common such malfunctions are, but we definitely got one. The ammunition that we're using right now is some ZQI. It's M855 ball. And I got this thing smoking, man. Let's go ahead and clear that malfunction out. Looks like, yeah, you know what? That actually may not have been a fault of the gun. It looks like it may have been a fault of the GI magazine. The round was just not quite going into the chamber. Let's go ahead and finish this magazine out. All right, so that time it didn't lock open. I'm going to go with crappy, well-used, old USGI magazine. Let's see what else we got in here. All right, let's try something else. All right, got some new magazines loaded up. Let's try this again. This is a Lancer 5 magazine. Let's go back to work on my little buddy down here. See if I can get it to lock in. Wow, man, we're having all sorts of issues. So I'm going to go ahead and say it doesn't like Lancer 5s. Let's try a hex mag. There we go. All right, didn't lock open on the hex mag. Doesn't seem like anyone wants to try to lock open. I've had that happen with hex mags in the past. I don't know what's up with the Lancer. Usually I have pretty good luck with them, but it looks like it's hanging up on the feed lips. Let's try that one more time. Locked open on the Lancer. I think maybe we just had one round too many in the Lancer. Sometimes you can overload them. I think that's what caused the problem. So anyway, yep, it's pretty interesting. Now what's kind of curious about these post-band rifles is that you can actually unscrew the muzzle device and this little sleeve will come off and you can take the end cap off and you can see right down this tube. It's just a square box on the inside. And because this is not a pre-band rifle and because it was converted to post-band configuration, you'll find yourself having to tighten up that muzzle nut or that muzzle device quite often. What I'm going to ultimately wind up doing is JB welding it or maybe even blind pending it or something like that just to keep it on there because it will keep backing off. But other than that, it's just kind of a fun gun to shoot. 3 magazines in on a hot summer day, you're done. You're going to be holding it like this because this out here just gets so stinking hot you just can't hold on to the gun. But still a cool piece of history. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the M17S borrows heavily from a previous fairly popular design, the Armalite AR-18 or AR-180, which is a semi-automatic version, which I have here. We're going to take this rifle apart, take the M17S apart, and show you the two internals. I think you're going to agree, somebody borrowed a few design ideas from the guys over at Armalite. Ah, what a beauty. I can understand why so many companies wanted to copy the basic design. The Brits did with the SA-80 as well. Let's go take a look inside the two rifles. All right, let's start off by taking a look inside the AR-180. I'm not going to go into great detail how to field strip the weapon. I've covered that in previous videos. I just want to get the bolt and carrier out of it. 2 recoil springs and guide rods. All right, so let's go ahead and close this up and set it aside. So here is the AR-180's bolt, carrier, and recoil spring system, okay? All right, now let's take apart the M17. Make sure the weapon's clear. You have 2 pins. You have one here and one here. These are both captive takedown pins. The one in the front is non-captive. It'll come all the way out, but it's more or less just a hinge pin. You don't have to take it out. I'm going to go ahead and use the tip of a bullet and push these pins out. It can be a little bit tough at times. So when I pull these pins out, that allows the bottom half just to hinge away, okay? Then I can take this front pin out, which is non-captive, and I can completely separate the upper from the lower. Just real quick, on the lower receiver, this is all polymer. It's actually 2 pieces of polymer. It fits together right here. Then there's a roll pin that goes between the two, and it's really flimsy. You can see it flex. Now on the new ones made by K&M, they're all aluminum and they use an AR-15 style trigger. The trigger on this bad boy, you see your trigger up here. Here's your trigger bar that runs all the way back. The trigger mechanism on this borrows very heavily from the AK. You can see the dual hook system right here and also the disconnector. Very much an AK style trigger mechanism. But let's talk about the bolt. To get the bolt out, everything just comes out the rear. There's really no rails in here for the bolt to ride on. It's kind of interesting how it works. You just grab the rear section and pull it out, and you can see the bolt just kind of flops around in there. But check this out, okay? Here is the M17S's bolt, and here's the AR-180's bolt. This is AR-180 in my right hand, and this is the M17S in my left hand. Pretty much a direct copy. Now, they have gone ahead and used a captive spring system on the M17S. They've shortened it all. You'll notice that the AR-180's is much longer and non-captive. All right, but still the same basic operating principle. You have a captive bolt cam pin firing pin here in the rear on the M17S. If you want to take it completely apart, there's a roll pin here. You have to punch that out, take your firing pin out, which will then free up this cam pin, and you can take your bolt out. I'm not going to do that right now. So you can definitely see the heritage between this and the L85, even the British L85 or SA80 rifles. The AR-180 is a very copied design right down to the M17S. So I'm going to go ahead and put the M17S back together again here really quick. Make sure your bolt's home, and it just kind of drops in there. There's no real rails or anything. You just basically have to make sure that the bolt lines up with the barrel extension. As I say that, I'm going to start struggling with it. Okay, just drops right in like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the polymer lower on the aluminum upper. Just push those two together. Make sure your pins are out. Pop the pins in place, the two captive pins, and then I can go ahead and put my hinge pin back in the front here. And the rifle's back together. Overall, a very interesting design. I hope you guys enjoyed coming out to the range and taking a quick look at my Bushmaster M17S and learning a little bit about the history of the rifle. If you guys have any questions, post those questions down below. I try to stick around for the first couple of days after a video goes live to answer the questions you may have. Also, if you haven't, please check out Copper Custom. It's our online store. If you'd like to support the Military Arms channel and our efforts here, you can do so by shopping at Copper Custom. And please swing by and check out full30.com. That's full30.com. We've taken all the web's best firearms content creators, brought them under one roof, and that is full30.com. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you guys soon. That sucker's hot.